Demet Özdemir. A name that shines across the screens, adored by millions, yet behind that light, there is a woman who has carried untold stories, secrets that the cameras never caught. For years she has been the symbol of strength, of beauty, of success. Always smiling, always glowing, always giving her audience the belief that life was nothing but glamorous. But every smile hides a truth, and every star has a night when the lights go out. Tonight, we begin with one of the most mysterious and emotional stories Demet has ever revealed. It wasn't about an award, or a glamorous role, or a headline made for tabloids. No, it was something far quieter, yet far more powerful. It was about a window, a dark street, and a car that carried more memories than anyone could imagine. It was late. The world outside was silent. Demet, unable to sleep, walked to her window. She didn't expect anything unusual, just another lonely night. But what she saw froze her heart. Parked in the shadows, just down the street, was a car she knew too well. It wasn't just any car. It was his car. The car that had once carried them through endless nights of laughter, whispered confessions, and promises that still echoed in her mind. Her breath caught. The room seemed smaller, colder. For a moment she didn't move. For a moment, she was back in time, reliving everything she thought she had buried. Why was he there? Why now? Was it an accident, or was it fate? Questions flooded her mind, but answers refused to come. All she had was that image, the man she once loved, waiting silently in the shadows of her street. Demet stood there frozen, her hand gripping the curtain so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her heart raced faster than it had in years, beating like it wanted to escape her chest. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The shape of the car, the familiar lines, the way it rested so quietly in the dark, there was no mistake. It was his. For a moment, she wondered if it was a dream. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her, showing her what she secretly longed to see. But no, this was real. The car was there. He was there. Just outside her world, close enough to touch, yet still separated by distance, silence, and everything that had broken between them. Memories flooded her. She remembered the first time she had sat in that very car, laughing as he turned the radio up too loud, teasing him for his terrible taste in music. She remembered the nights they drove through the city with no destination, as if being lost together was better than being found apart. That car wasn't just a vehicle, it was a vault of their love, holding every secret moment that had once been only theirs. And now it was back, like a ghost haunting her street. Demet's mind raced. Why is he here? Did he come to see me? Does he want to talk? Or is he just remembering, like I am now? Part of her wanted to run outside immediately, to open the door, to look into his eyes and finally hear the truth her heart had been starving for. But another part of her, the part that had been wounded before, the part that still remembered the silence of unanswered calls and the pain of words left unsaid, kept her rooted to the floor. Fear was stronger than desire. She whispered to herself, if I go down there, everything will change. Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to believe that his presence meant something, that he still cared, that he still remembered, that deep down he had never truly let her go. But what if she was wrong? What if he was just passing by, parking there for reasons that had nothing to do with her? Could she handle the heartbreak of discovering that she was only a shadow in his rearview mirror? So she stayed at the window. Silent. Watching. Waiting. Time moved strangely that night. Minutes felt like hours. Every flicker of the streetlight, every shadow that shifted made her heart jump. But he didn't move. He stayed in the car. No door opened. No footsteps approached. It was as if he was trapped in the same fear as she was, locked in the same prison of hesitation. Two people so close, yet separated by invisible walls built of pride, regret, and uncertainty. Years later, when she finally revealed this moment, her voice cracked with emotion. She said, I stood there for hours. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. And when I finally looked again, the car was gone. Gone. Just like that. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. And that silence followed her for years, louder than any words he could have spoken. The night after seeing his car outside her window, Demet couldn't find peace. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every sound outside making her wonder if he was still there, waiting in the shadows. Her thoughts were relentless, refusing to let her rest. She asked herself the same questions over and over again, like a broken record playing the same melody of doubt and longing. Why didn't I go outside? Why didn't he come up? Was that my chance to finally know the truth? Or was it better this way, leaving the questions unanswered? The following days were no easier. Every time she passed her window, her eyes betrayed her, searching the street, hoping, yet fearing, that the car would be there again. But it never was. The silence of that absence was almost heavier than the shock of seeing it the first time. She realized then that she wasn't haunted by his presence, she was haunted by his silence. Demet tried to distract herself. She threw herself into work, into scripts and rehearsals, into smiling for cameras and laughing with friends. On the outside, she seemed fine, confident, successful, unshaken. But inside, a storm raged. Because no matter how much she tried to bury it, her heart kept replaying that moment. The curtain in her hand, the cold glass of the window against her skin, the unmistakable shape of his car waiting in the dark. Years passed, and still, that memory remained untouched in the corner of her heart, preserved like a photograph she could never throw away. And then one day, when the question was asked, was there ever a night you felt he was still close to you? She finally let the words escape. Her confession was simple, yet it shook everyone who heard it. With a trembling voice, she said, "I looked out the window, and his car was there." Those words echoed louder than any script she had ever performed, louder than any role she had played on screen. Because this wasn't fiction. This was real. And in that single sentence, the world understood the weight she had carried. Fans reacted instantly. Some said it was fate, that even after everything, destiny had pulled them close again, even if just for a moment. Others warned her not to hold on to ghosts, that the past was the past and couldn't be resurrected. But for Demet, it wasn't about fate or warnings. It was about truth. About finally letting the world see the moment that had lived inside her for so long. And the most powerful part? She didn't regret telling it. She admitted, "I kept it inside for years because I thought no one would understand." But sometimes silence is heavier than words. That night was always with me, whether I spoke it or not. So when I finally said it out loud, I felt free. Her honesty struck a chord with millions. Because who hasn't lived with an unsaid moment? Who hasn't stood at their own window, waiting for something, or someone, that never arrived? When Demet's confession finally reached the public, it spread like wildfire. Clips of her words were shared across social media within minutes, translated into different languages, dissected, replayed, and set to dramatic music in fan edits. Headlines screamed. Demet Özdemir admits, she saw his car outside her home. What was Can Yaman doing that night? A silent reunion that never happened. The media loved it, but the fans lived it. They debated endlessly, some believing it was a sign of destiny, others warning it was a memory best left in the past. On Twitter, one fan wrote, "He was there because he still loves her. He couldn't let go." Another answered sharply, "If he loved her, he would have knocked." Silence is not love, it's fear. Instagram filled with edits showing Demet's emotional words paired with old photos of her and Can laughing together on set, their chemistry undeniable even after all these years. YouTube channels uploaded hour-long discussions analyzing every possible meaning behind his presence on that street. Was he waiting for her to come outside? Was he too proud, too scared, too broken? Or did he simply not know what he wanted at all? And while the world debated, Can himself said nothing. Not a word. Not a post. Not a hint of confirmation or denial. For some, his silence was infuriating. For others, it was poetic. The silence itself became part of the story, almost louder than words could ever be. People close to him were asked for comments, but they all refused. No one wanted to step into a fire that could not be controlled. Still, whispers began to circulate, rumors that he had been restless that period, that he often drove late at night, circling places filled with memories. Some claimed he had been seen near her neighborhood more than once, though none of it could be proven. Demet, meanwhile, chose not to clarify further. She had told her truth, and that was enough. But the world wanted more. Every move she made afterward was magnified. If she posted a photo by a window, people zoomed in on the street behind her. If she smiled in an interview, headlines suggested she was finally at peace because of the car incident. Her silence, paired with his silence, created a mystery too addictive for anyone to ignore. And that was the cruel beauty of it all: one quiet night, one car in the shadows, and two people who did not move, had now become one of the most talked about stories in their lives. For Demet, that night never truly ended. Even as the years passed, the image of the car outside her home returned to her in quiet moments, the kind of moments when the world slowed down and the heart remembered what it wanted to forget. She admitted that sometimes, even in the middle of filming, when the cameras paused and the crew adjusted the lights, her mind would drift back to that street, that silence, that unanswered question: why was he there? Some nights she told herself it was destiny, that love has its own way of speaking, and that night was the universe's reminder that their story was not finished. Other nights, she told herself it was nothing. That perhaps he had simply driven by, perhaps his presence had no meaning at all. But whichever story she chose to believe, neither brought her peace. Because peace does not come from questions without answers. Still, she learned something important: silence itself can be an answer. Maybe his presence there was his way of saying, "I haven't forgotten." Maybe the fact that he didn't knock meant, "I don't know how to begin again." Maybe both could be true at once. In her confession, Demet said, "I realized love doesn't just vanish. It doesn't matter how much time has passed, or how many walls you build around yourself. When it returns, even quietly, even in the form of a car outside your window, it shakes you." As for Demet herself, she chose to carry the memory not as a burden but as a lesson. A reminder that sometimes life gives us moments, not answers. That courage is not always about opening the door, it can also be about surviving the silence. And yet, even as she said these words, one thing remained unsaid. A question that lingered in her eyes, even when her lips refused to form it: if I had gone outside that night, what would he have said? It was a question no headline could answer, no fan could solve, and no rumor could satisfy. It belonged only to her, and perhaps to him. And maybe, just maybe, it was better that way. Years had passed, but that single night remained alive, like a scar that healed but never disappeared. For Demet, it was not simply about seeing a car outside her window. It was about everything that moment represented. A love that once burned too brightly. A silence that spoke louder than words. And a question that still followed her: what if? She confessed it because carrying it alone had become too heavy. And in doing so, she touched millions who had lived through their own unanswered nights. Fans debated, the media speculated, and the world tried to write an ending. But some stories are not meant to be finished by outsiders. Can never spoke. Not then, not later. His silence became part of the legend. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was simply his way of saying, some truths live best in silence. Demet, however, found her own closure. Not by hearing his words, but by finally speaking her own. I looked out the window, and his car was there, she said. Simple, fragile, unforgettable. In that confession, she turned a private ache into a universal story. A story about how love leaves echoes, how silence can break us, and how courage sometimes means admitting the moment that never left your heart. And so the image lingers: a woman at her window, a man in his car, two lives separated by glass, by pride, by fear, by destiny. No words spoken. No doors opened. Just the heavy silence of everything they could have been. Maybe that silence was the ending. Or maybe, just maybe, it was only a pause. Because the truth is, as long as hearts remember, stories never truly end.